Chapter 1. The Discovery. In the autumn of 1882, Bleak Hollow was nothing more than a forgotten scratch on the map, a played-out mining camp 20 miles northwest of Central City, nestled in a valley so narrow the sun barely touched it 3 hours a day. Most prospectors had moved on after the silver panic of '79, chasing rumors of strikes in Leadville and Aspen. But Josiah Blackwood wasn't most prospectors. Josiah arrived in Bleak Hollow on October 14, 1882, riding a mule so thin you could count its ribs. He took up residence in the abandoned assay office on what locals called Coffin Street, a grim name earned after a diphtheria outbreak killed 23 children in the winter of '76. The building still had the original sign, Morrison and Sons Assay, established 1859. Josiah was a peculiar man, 42 years old, with eyes the color of creek ice and hands scarred from decades of hard rock mining. He'd worked the Comstock lode in Virginia City, the placer fields of California, and the deep shafts of Butte, Montana. But according to his journal, which I now possess, he'd been searching for something specific, something he called the Madre vein. The locals at McGillicuddy's saloon on Pine Street thought him touched in the head. The barkeep, a German immigrant named Klaus Reinhardt, told me Josiah would come in every Saturday night, order a single whiskey, and spread out old Spanish maps across the poker table. Maps that supposedly dated back to the 1700s when Franciscan missionaries explored these mountains. He kept talking about Los Hermanos de Sangre, the Blood Brothers, said they were Spanish monks who found a vein of gold so pure, so vast, that they sealed it up and placed a curse on it, said whoever opened it would pay in blood. On November 3rd, 1882, Josiah found it. He'd been working a collapsed shaft on the eastern ridge, an old tunnel from the Eureka Mining Company that had been abandoned since 1868. The entrance was barely visible, hidden behind a rock slide and overgrown with scrub pine. But Josiah's journal describes what he found with almost religious fervor. "Today I broke through the false wall. The Spanish had sealed it with adobe brick and marked it with symbols I dare not reproduce here. Behind it, a natural cavern descends at a 40-degree angle. The walls, God help me, the walls shimmer with gold. Not veins, not deposits. The entire rock face is threaded with it, like blood vessels in living tissue. I have found the Madre vein. I have found my destiny." What Josiah didn't mention in that entry, but what I found in his later writings, was the smell. He described it as copper and rot, like a battlefield 3 days old, and the temperature. Despite being November in the Colorado high country, the tunnel was warm, unnaturally warm. He should have turned back then. But gold fever, as I said, can drive a man mad. Chapter 2. The Partnership. Josiah knew he couldn't work the claim alone. The Madre vein was deep. His initial survey suggested it descended at least 300 feet into the mountain. He needed men, equipment, and capital. On November 10th, he sent a telegram to Denver to a mining engineer named Thomas Ashford. I found the original telegram in the Western Union records. Ashford, stop. Found it, stop. Bring 3 good men and equipment, stop.
We'll split 5 ways. Stop. Come immediately. Stop. Blackwood. Thomas Ashford arrived on November 18th with 3 men. Marcus Webb, a 34-year-old powderman from Cornwall, England, who'd worked the tin mines before immigrating, known for his precision with dynamite. Daniel Reb Murphy, a 28-year-old Irish laborer with a reputation for being able to swing a pickaxe for 12 hours straight. Red hair, red beard, and a temper to match. And Elijah Cobb, a former slave from Mississippi who'd yearned mining in the coal fields of West Virginia. Quiet, methodical, and according to all accounts, the most God-fearing man in the group. They set up operations in the old Eureka shaft. Thomas Ashford, being the engineer, documented everything in meticulous detail. His field notebook, which I obtained from his widow in Denver, describes the first week of excavation. November 19th. Began clearing the main tunnel. Blackwood's description was accurate. The gold content is extraordinary. Webb estimates 2,000 ounces per ton of ore. If this vein runs as deep as Blackwood believes, we're looking at a strike worth millions. November 21st. Strange occurrence. Red Murphy refused to work past 4 p.m., claims he heard singing coming from deeper in the tunnel. We heard nothing. Blackwood dismissed it as echo from our own voices. Murphy insists it was Latin. He was raised Catholic and recognized the cadence. We continue tomorrow. November 24th. Webb set charges to widen the main shaft. Breakthrough at 2:17 p.m. We've accessed a worked chamber, clearly man-made, clearly old. Spanish construction, perhaps 150 years or more. There are alcoves carved into the walls, 7 of them. Each contains human remains, skeletons in rotted brown robes, Franciscan monks by the look of the garments. Blackwood was right. But here's what Thomas Ashford didn't write in his official field notes. Here's what I found in a separate, personal letter he wrote to his wife but never sent. A letter I discovered hidden in the lining of his notebook. Dearest Margaret, I am frightened. We should not be here. The monks didn't die naturally. Their skulls are crushed as if by their own hands. And there are words carved in the chamber floor in Spanish. Elijah, who learned Spanish working the railroads in New Mexico, translated them. La sangre llama a la sangre. El oro exige su precio. Blood calls to blood. The gold demands its price. I want to leave, but the others won't hear of it. Blackwood especially. He's changed, Margaret. His eyes have a fever to them. He barely sleeps. I hear him in the tunnel at night, talking to someone, but he's always alone. On November 28th, they broke through to the Madre vein proper. Thomas Ashford's last official entry reads, "The vein is beyond comprehension. It runs vertical, like a golden spine through the mountain. We've sunk a shaft 40 feet and haven't found the bottom. Blackwood insists we go deeper. Webb is concerned about structural integrity. Murphy hasn't spoken in 2 days, just works and stares. Elijah prays constantly. I've agreed to 1 more week. Then I'm leaving, with or without my share." He never got that week.
Chapter 3. The Descent.
December 1st, 1882 was the last time anyone in Bleak Hollow saw all 5 men alive. Klaus Reinhardt at McGillicuddy Saloon remembered it clearly. They came in that afternoon, all of them, except Blackwood. They looked like Lazarus risen from the grave, pale, thin, covered in rock dust. Red Murphy's hands were shaking so bad he couldn't hold his whiskey glass. Elijah kept muttering Bible verses. Webb just stared at the wall. Only Ashford spoke. He asked me if I knew a priest. I told him Father Donnelly came through from Georgetown once a month. Ashford said, "That's too late. It will be too late." Then Blackwood came in, and they all went silent. Blackwood ordered them back to work, and they went, like dogs to a master. What happened in that mine over the next 6 days I've pieced together from 3 sources. Josiah Blackwood's journal, which becomes increasingly erratic and illegible, scratch marks and messages found on the tunnel walls, and the testimony of Elijah, the last man to see the men alive. Blackwood's journal, December 2nd. 90 feet down, the vein widens. We're pulling out ore so rich it's almost pure gold. But the men are weak, ungrateful. They want to stop. They don't understand. The Madre vein isn't just gold. It's alive. It speaks. It shows me things. The monks understood. That's why they stayed. That's why they guard it. We must go deeper. We must reach the heart. A message carved into the tunnel wall, found at the 90-foot level in Marcus Webb's handwriting. If you find this, cave in the shaft, bury it all. Webb, December 3. Another message at 110 feet in Red Murphy's hand. It took Webb. God forgive us. It took Webb. Elijah Cobb's testimony, given to Sheriff William Hartley of Gilpin County on December 9, 1882. We reached 120 feet on December 4th. The vein opened into another chamber, bigger than the first, and in the center there was a well, a shaft going straight down, lined with gold. Blackwood called it the heart of the mountain. He wanted to descend. Webb refused. They argued. Blackwood, he pushed Webb, just pushed him. Webb fell into the well. We heard him screaming for maybe 10 seconds, then nothing. Ashford tried to climb out, tried to reach the surface. Blackwood stopped him. There was a fight. Red Murphy tried to help Ashford. I ran. God help me, I ran. I heard the pickaxe. I heard Ashford screaming. I heard Red begging, and I heard Blackwood laughing, not like a man, like something else. I made it to the 80-foot level before I heard Blackwood coming up behind me. He was singing, in Latin, the same song Red heard that first week. I hid in one of the side tunnels. I waited. I heard him pass. I heard him go back down. And I heard other voices join his, 7 voices, singing in harmony. I waited until dawn. Then I climbed out. When I reached the surface, I collapsed the entrance with the remaining dynamite. I buried it all. Sheriff Hartley organized a rescue party on December 10th. 15 men from Central City and Blackhawk. They spent 3 days clearing the collapsed entrance. They found the tunnel empty. No bodies, no equipment, no gold. Just 7 alcoves carved into the walls of the deepest chamber, and in each alcove, fresh blood. Chapter 4. The Investigation. The official report from Sheriff Hartley concluded that Josiah Blackwood murdered his partners in a fit of gold fever, hid the bodies somewhere in the extensive tunnel system, and fled the territory. A warrant was issued. Wanted posters were distributed throughout Colorado, Wyoming, and Utah. But I knew there was more to the story. I arrived in Bleak Hollow on March 15, 1883, 4 months after the incident. The town was dying. Only 11 residents remained. Klaus Reinhardt was packing up McGillicuddy's saloon. Elijah Cobb had left for Denver the day after giving his testimony. I spent 2 weeks interviewing everyone who'd had contact with Blackwood. I searched the county records. I found Josiah Blackwood's journal in the abandoned assay office, hidden beneath a loose floorboard. And I found something else. In the Gilpin County Courthouse in Central City, in the archives dating back to the 1860s, I discovered a land deed. The original claim for the Eureka Mine, filed in 1859 by a prospector named Silas Morrison, the same Morrison whose name was on the assay office. The deed included a survey map, and on that map, in faded ink, was a notation: Spanish excavation, circa 1750, sealed by order of Mission San Carlos. Do not disturb. I tracked down Silas Morrison's descendants. His grandson, living in Golden, Colorado, had inherited his papers. Among them was a letter from a Franciscan priest named Father Esteban Morales, dated July 12, 1751. To whom it may concern, by the authority vested in me by the Church and the Crown of Spain, I hereby declare the excavation known as La Madre de Sangre to be sealed in perpetuity. 7 of our brothers entered the deep chamber, seeking to claim the gold for the glory of God. They did not return as men. What emerged wore their faces, but spoke with ancient voices. We were forced to collapse the entrance and seal them within. The gold is cursed. It is not of God. It is a door, and doors work both ways. Let no man open this place again. Father Esteban Morales, Mission San Carlos de Borromeo. I returned to Bleak Hollow on April 3, 1883. The collapsed mine entrance had been disturbed. Someone or something had dug it out from the inside. Chapter 5. The Return. I should have left then. Any sane man would have, but I'm a journalist. I needed to know. I entered the tunnel at dawn, carrying a lantern, a pistol, and a foolish amount of courage. The main shaft was clear. The side tunnels were empty. I descended to the first chamber, the one with the 7 alcoves. The monk skeletons were gone, but there were fresh marks on the floor, drag marks, leading deeper. I continued down. At the 90-foot level, I found Marcus Webb's pocket watch, crushed flat. At 110 feet, I found Red Murphy's crucifix, the chain broken. At 120 feet, I reached the final chamber. The well was there. The shaft lined with gold, descending into darkness, and around it, arranged in a circle, were 4 figures. They wore the rotted remains of mining clothes. Their faces were turned toward the well. They were singing, in Latin, the same hymn the Franciscan monks would have sung. I recognized them from the photographs I'd seen. Thomas Ashford, Marcus Webb, Daniel Murphy, and Josiah Blackwood. They turned to look at me in perfect unison. Their eyes were gone. In the empty sockets, gold glimmered. Josiah Blackwood smiled, and when he spoke, 7 voices emerged from his throat. "Brother Samuel, we've been waiting. The Madre vein is complete. 7 monks, 7 miners. The circle is almost closed. We need only 3 more. Will you join us? Will you sing?" I ran. I ran like Elijah Cobb had run, like any man with sense would run. I heard them following, not chasing, but walking, steady, patient, singing. I reached the surface. I didn't collapse the entrance this time. I did something worse. I rode to Central City. I went to the county office and I filed a claim on the Eureka mine under a false name. Then I placed advertisements in newspapers across Colorado, Wyoming, and California. Gold Strike, Bleak Hollow, Colorado. Experienced miners needed. Generous shares. Inquire at Morrison Assay Office. You see, I'd read Father Morales' letter carefully. The circle is almost closed. 7 monks, 7 miners. They need 3 more. I couldn't kill them. I couldn't stop them. But I could make sure they got what they needed. I could close the circle. And I could make sure no one ever had to know what's buried in that mountain.
Epilogue. 3 miners answered my advertisement. I gave them the deed. I gave them the survey maps. I told them about the gold. I didn't tell them about the singing. They entered the mine on April 20th, 1883. They never came out. On April 23rd, the tunnel collapsed. A natural cave-in, according to the county surveyor. The entire eastern ridge of the mountain came down, thousands of tons of rock sealing the Eureka mine forever. I filed my report with the Rocky Mountain News. I called it the Bleak Hollow Murders and blamed everything on Josiah Blackwood's gold fever. The story ran on page 6. No one cared about a played-out mining camp and 5 dead prospectors. Bleak Hollow is gone now. The last residents left in the summer of '83. The buildings collapsed. The forest reclaimed the land. If you look at a modern map of Colorado, you won't find it. But I know where it is. And on quiet nights, when the wind blows down from the mountains, I swear I can hear them singing. 7 monks, 7 miners, 3 more. The circle is closed. The Madre vein is complete, and the gold is still there, waiting, always waiting, for the next man foolish enough to seek his fortune in blood. This has been The Miner of Bleak Hollow, Riches in Blood, a Mysteries of the Old West production. If you enjoyed this tale of terror from America's frontier, subscribe to our channel and ring that bell for more stories from the dark heart of the Old West. Leave a comment below. Would you have entered that mine? Would you have taken the gold? Remember, some treasures are buried for a reason. Until next time, stay out of the dark places.